My husband and his mother secretly sold the car I bought for work. You don't need it, you're a homemaker now, he said. I missed my interview. That night, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years. When I came home with what I'd secured, they fell silent because. Let me back up a little. I wasn't always like this. I used to be quiet, polite, kind to a fault. My mom raised me to keep the peace. Don't start trouble unless you want trouble back, she'd say. So, for most of my life, I didn't. I let people talk over me. I let people walk past me. And I married a man who did the same. Ethan used to say all the right things. Back when we were dating, he talked about being partners. About building a life together. About how proud he was that I worked 2 jobs and still saved for school. He acted like he respected me. But something changed after we got married. At first, it was small things. He'd say, "You don't need to work weekends anymore, babe. I got you now." Or, "Why waste time on that coding stuff? Just relax. We're doing fine." Then, when I didn't listen, it turned into guilt. "You never have time for me anymore. You're always tired. Is school more important than me?" I kept pushing forward because I wanted something that was mine. I wanted a real job. Stability. And most of all, I wanted to not be like my mom, who spent her entire life waiting on a man who never gave her anything back. So I saved up, and I bought that car. A 2012 Subaru Outback with 140,000 miles, clean title, perfect for commuting. I cried when I drove it home. It was the first thing I ever owned that no one helped me get. Ethan didn't even come with me to pick it up. He said he was tired. I used that car every day. To go to school. To get groceries. To go on solo drives when I needed to clear my head. It was my escape, and maybe Ethan saw it that way too, because it became a problem for him. He started complaining more. "Gas is getting expensive, you know. Don't you think you're gone too much? My mom said it's not safe for women to be driving alone at night." I knew Jeanette was in his ear. That woman never liked me. She thought I was beneath Ethan. She used to drop hints about how her friends' daughters were real women, the kind who baked, volunteered, raised kids, and always kept their nails done. Then, one Sunday morning, Ethan came into the kitchen while I was making eggs and said, "Let's talk." He said he'd been thinking. That maybe I was pushing myself too hard. That we didn't need 2 incomes. That he made enough. That he and Jeanette had been talking and maybe it was time I embraced being a homemaker. I asked him what the hell that meant. He said, "You don't need to work. You've done enough. Just be home now. Be my wife." I said no. Simple as that. I had an interview that week, and I was going to it. He didn't argue. He just nodded. That should have been the warning sign. But I had no idea what he and his mother had already planned. Tuesday morning came. I woke up early. Showered. Got dressed in my nicest blouse and blazer. I even practiced interview answers in the mirror while curling my hair. I was nervous, but excited. This was the first real step toward my own career. I stepped out the door at 7:30 a.m. Coffee in hand. Resume folder in my bag. And the car was gone. I stood there, blinking, like my brain couldn't catch up with reality. I looked around the street like maybe I parked it elsewhere. I checked my keys. I walked down the sidewalk in my heels like maybe it was a prank or a joke. Then I called Ethan. He answered like he had just woken up. "Oh, hey. What's up?" I asked where the Subaru was. Long pause. Then, calmly, like he was telling me the weather, he said, "Oh. I sold it." I didn't say anything. I felt this slow rise of heat crawl up my throat. He kept going. "You don't need it anymore, babe. We talked about this. You're going to stay home. I told Mom yesterday too. She agreed it was for the best. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just hung up. I missed the interview. There was no time to call a cab. No one nearby I could ask for a ride. The hospital HR never replied to my follow-up email. That chance was gone. That night, Ethan came home like nothing had happened. I was sitting on the couch, silent, staring at the wall. He kissed the top of my head and said, "You'll see. This is better for both of us." I slept in the guest room. And I didn't say a word to him. At 1:13 a.m., I took out my old phone. The one I hadn't used in years. I scrolled through contacts I didn't think I still had, and I found him. Mark. My older brother. We hadn't spoken since our dad's death. We had fought over the will. Over who took care of Dad more. Over stupid things. I didn't know if he'd answer. But he did. "Hello?" I broke down. I told him everything. School, the car, Jeanette, the job, how I felt like I was disappearing. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said one thing: "You want help leaving, or you want help flipping the table?" I said, "I want to flip the table." Next thing I knew, he was on his way. He drove 6 hours up from Oregon. Showed up wearing work boots, jeans, and a stare that could freeze fire. He had a bag of tools, a binder, and a notebook full of what he called the plan. And the plan started with one truth I had forgotten: the Subaru was mine. Fully paid, fully registered. In my name only. Ethan couldn't legally sell it. And Jeanette had helped him commit fraud. That was the first domino. The next morning, I didn't go back home. I stayed with Mark at a cheap motel outside Spokane, the kind with cigarette burns on the comforter and stale air in the lobby. It didn't matter. It felt better than my own house. Mark was already making calls. Turns out, he had a friend named Kelly who worked in auto investigations for the state. She didn't ask too many questions when he explained the situation. Once I handed her my registration papers and proof of ownership, she was pissed for me. She told me straight up, they had no right. This wasn't a mistake. This was theft. Mark drove me to the local DMV and helped me file a stolen vehicle report. Then we went to the local police station and filed another report. This time with the exact name of the dealership that processed the sale. Ethan hadn't just sold it to a guy off Craigslist. No, he brought it to a small dealership on the edge of town and sold it for cash. Kelly pulled the records. The dealership had already resold the car to someone in Idaho. That could have complicated things, but it didn't, because Ethan had signed the title pretending to be me. My name was forged. That was a felony. The cops didn't arrest him right away, but they opened a case. And I made sure to keep all communication with him quiet. I didn't want to tip him off that anything was coming. Meanwhile, I played my part. I texted Ethan short messages like, "Just need some space," and "Staying with a friend for a bit." He ate it up. He even sent one text that made me nauseous: "I'm glad you're finally seeing reason. Let Mom help you. We love you." Mark and I met with a lawyer the next day. We pulled up every joint account we had. I made a list of everything in that house that was mine, down to my old textbooks and personal gifts from friends. Then we dug into Ethan's accounts. Turned out he had taken the Subaru money and deposited it into his personal checking account. He never even planned to share it with me. The lawyer helped me freeze our joint credit card. Then he helped me file for a legal separation. I had one more move to make before I went back. Mark handed me a prepaid burner phone. "You don't talk to him until you're ready. And when you do, you'll have the power." I waited 4 more days. In that time, I met with the HR rep from the hospital again. I explained what happened. She couldn't offer me the same job, but she said if I could get my transportation back in order, she'd consider me for the next round of interviews. On Friday night, I walked back into my house. Ethan and Jeanette were in the kitchen. She was making her god-awful meatloaf. He was scrolling his phone, drinking a beer. When I opened the door, Ethan stood up like nothing was wrong. "Hey babe, you're back," he smiled, like I was just late from a shopping trip. Jeanette turned and gave me a tight smile, like she was being gracious. I didn't say anything. I dropped a thick envelope on the table. Inside was a copy of the police report, a copy of the forged title, and a legal notice of separation with a court date. Ethan picked it up and read it. At first, he looked confused. Then angry. "What the hell is this?" I didn't answer. Jeanette picked up the other paper. "Forgery?" "No, this is a mistake." "Ethan would never, the dealership confirmed it," I said calmly. "He signed my name." "That's fraud." "Don't do this," Ethan said, his voice getting louder. "You're overreacting." "No," I said. "You stole from me. You lied. And you tried to trap me into a life I didn't want. So now I'm making sure you face real consequences." He stepped toward me, and I stepped back. "I'm not staying," I said. "This isn't my home anymore." I looked at Jeanette. "And you, stay out of my life. You don't get a say in anything I do." She opened her mouth, but for once, nothing came out. Ethan followed me out the door, yelling, "You're going to destroy everything over a car?" I stopped at the sidewalk and turned around. It wasn't about the car. It was about control. And I'm done letting you have any. Then I got into Mark's truck, and we drove off. But the story wasn't over. Because 2 weeks later, Ethan got served. The charges were real now: fraud, forgery, illegal sale of property. His job, the one he was so proud of. They found out and put him on leave. And Jeanette? She made one last mistake. She tried to harass me at work once I got a temp position at a clinic. She showed up and started yelling about how I was destroying her son's life. She didn't know the receptionist was recording. She didn't know my boss was in the hallway. She ended up banned from the building and reported to the police for harassment. But that still wasn't the end. After Jeanette got banned from my workplace, she went quiet, for a while. I thought maybe the embarrassment would keep her and Ethan out of my life, at least until the court dates. I thought wrong. 2 weeks after the harassment incident, I got a call from my bank. Someone tried to access one of my personal savings accounts. The one Ethan didn't know about. I opened it years ago when I started saving for school. It was under my maiden name, with a different mailing address. Only reason I kept it alive was because I still used it for small things: my coffee habit, the rare treat-yourself splurges. Turns out someone tried to reset the online password 3 times. From an IP address traced back to Jeanette's house. That was the second police report I filed. This time, the detective assigned to my stolen car case was already familiar with my name. I told him what happened, and he sighed like this wasn't his first time seeing crap like this. He said, "This woman and your husband, do they know what boundaries are?" I just laughed. "No. They think they make the rules." He nodded and said, "Not anymore." Mark was livid. He wanted to go straight to Jeanette's house and confront her. I told him no. I didn't want this to become a shouting match or a street fight. I wanted to destroy them legally. I wanted to take away their power the same way they tried to take away mine. Meanwhile, Ethan tried a new tactic. Love bombing. Texts every day: "I miss you. I'm sorry. Let's fix this. I messed up, but we're family. I sold the car because I was scared. I didn't want to lose you to work. You're the love of my life." He sent flowers to my job. A box of chocolate to Mark's place. Even wrote me a letter and mailed it to my temp agency. He must have thought I'd crumble. That I'd feel nostalgic or guilty or weak. But all I felt was disgust. Then the biggest twist came. My lawyer got a call from the hospital where I'd originally applied, the place where I missed the interview after the car disappeared. They were doing a new round of hires for the same department. The HR woman I'd spoken to had remembered my story. She wanted to offer me another shot. An interview was set for the following Monday. I bought a used car with the help of my savings and a small loan, an older Corolla, but in great shape. This time, it stayed hidden at Mark's place until the court mess was settled. I wasn't taking chances. The interview went great. I didn't tell them everything, but I said enough to show I'd been through something and came out sharper. Stronger. I got the job. It came with a decent salary, benefits, and a manager who seemed genuinely decent. I started the next week. Ethan must have heard from someone, because that night, I got an email. Subject, so it was always about the job. Message, you were just waiting for a reason to leave. Hope it was worth it. I hope you know you ruined this family. He had the nerve to play victim. I didn't reply. But a few days later, I found out what he was really afraid of. Ethan wasn't just on leave from work. He had been reported to corporate for ethical misconduct, because of the forgery and police reports. And guess what? His company was strict. No tolerance for legal issues tied to fraud. He was being reviewed by their internal HR and ethics committee. Jeanette tried to save him. She sent me an email, begging me to withdraw the charges. Said Ethan would lose everything. That it was just a mistake. That he was under pressure. That he panicked. She wrote, "You've made your point. You got what you wanted. Let it go now before you really destroy him." That was the last straw for me. I printed her email. I sent it to the detective, the prosecutor handling the fraud complaint, and to my lawyer. And then I had my lawyer request a protective order, against both Ethan and Jeanette. Based on harassment, financial interference, and emotional coercion. It got approved. They couldn't contact me again without breaking the law. And once that was in place, things got worse for them. But I wasn't done. I had one more move left. Once the protective order went through, things started falling apart, for them, not me. Jeanette and Ethan were cut off from any contact with me. They couldn't call, text, email, or even drive past my job or apartment without risking arrest. I finally slept through the night for the first time in months. No fear. No tension in my chest. Just quiet. But then came the court date for the stolen car and forged title. Ethan showed up in a suit that looked a size too big and eyes sunken like he hadn't been sleeping either. Jeanette was right behind him, wearing pearls like she thought the judge would care. I walked in with my lawyer, calm and quiet, wearing a clean black blazer and flats. I wasn't there to put on a show. I was there to win. The prosecutor laid it all out. The forged title, the dealership records, the recorded call with the DMV official explaining that Ethan had no legal right to sell the vehicle, and Jeanette's attempted password breach on my account. They even played the voicemail she left after the email, yelling that I'd better fix what I started or else. The judge didn't need much convincing. Ethan was fined heavily for the illegal sale. He was put on probation for the forgery. He narrowly avoided jail, but only because I didn't press for it. My lawyer said it would just drag things out, and I already had what I needed. But the best part? The dealership was forced to pay me market value plus damages for the illegal sale. I walked out with a check for $11,400, more than I paid for that Subaru in the first place. That same week, Ethan lost his job. His company let him go for ethical violations that jeopardized company reputation. No appeal. No severance. Just gone. Jeanette tried one last stunt. She wrote to the court, saying I had ruined her family, and asked for leniency. The judge ignored it. Now for the part you won't expect. After all this, I started getting mail for Ethan. Credit card bills. Overdue payments. Final notices. Turns out he had opened a new card before the separation and ran up nearly $9,000, thinking maybe we'd reconcile, or maybe that I'd somehow be stuck with it. But since I had legal separation filed and the card was under his name only, I wasn't responsible. I sent every single notice back with a copy of the court document and a note in Sharpie, address not at this residence. Return to sender. 6 months after the court case, I heard from a mutual friend that Ethan moved back in with Jeanette. Jobless. In debt. Driving her car now. And Jeanette? She lost her spot on the homeowners board in her neighborhood after someone anonymously sent her harassment report and protective order to the HOA. Yes, I did it. She always acted like she was the moral authority. That her family was above everyone. Now she can't even vote on lawn regulations. I kept moving forward. I got promoted within 3 months at the hospital. Full-time benefits. A good boss. Real coworkers. I rented a small one-bedroom near downtown Spokane and finally bought my own new car, brand new, off the lot, with 0 miles. A silver Camry with heated seats and a sunroof. Paid for by me, with the check from the dealership and my own savings. Mark and I? We're close again. He still doesn't talk much, but he shows up. And I learned that's more than enough. Now, here's the final twist. It's about me. There was a moment, after all this was done, when I felt empty. I had won. I had gotten justice. But I had also lost years of my life to someone who never really saw me. And I had to own that. I had to sit in it. I stayed in therapy. I stopped dating. I made peace with the fact that I let someone like Ethan steer my life off course. I forgave myself, not because I needed pity, but because I deserved better than regret. And that was my real revenge. Not just the money. Not the court win. Not the job or the car. But the fact that they have to wake up every day and live with who they are. And I get to wake up every day free, working a job I earned, driving a car I paid for, sleeping in a home no one can take from me. I'm not the same woman who waited on Ethan to treat me right. I'm not the same woman who let his mother talk down to me at dinner tables. Now, I speak up. I walk away. And when people ask me how I got so strong, I just smile and say, I finally remembered who the hell I was.